Welcome to Start Local, where we talk with business owners, leaders of nonprofits, and other members of our community focused on doing business in and around Chester County, Pennsylvania. Each episode will provide insight into the local business scene and tell you about opportunities to connect with and support businesses and nonprofits in your local area.
The Southern Chester County Chamber of Commerce promotes trade, commerce, industry, and sustainable economic development while supporting a diverse and growing marketplace. The Chamber is proud to partner with the Start Local podcast to raise the profile of businesses and nonprofits throughout Chester County. Learn more about the Chamber at sccccc.com. That's sccccc.com.
Welcome to Start Local. I am Eric Goodmanson, and I'm here in the recording conversation today with my co-host, Liam Dempsey. Liam, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic, Eric. Fantastic. Thank you.
Well, today we're speaking with Patti Brennan. Patti is the founder and CEO of Key Financial. Hello, and welcome, Patti.
Thank you so much for having me today. April 14th. Can't think of a better day to be on the show with the two of you.
Well, thanks, Patti. Really appreciate you making this time. We know it's busy for everyone in financial services, and I can imagine your schedule is the same.
We seem to catch Patti at all the busy times of the year, because the other time we always see Patti is during the Chester County Economic Development Council's annual economic briefing, which tends to happen every January roughly. And you've been doing that annual economic presentation for over 20 years, if I'm not mistaken. That's a very impressive run and an even more impressive event. So how did you get involved with that event in the first place? And why do you think CCEDC keeps inviting you back year after year?
You know, it's a really good question. I think that, I had done some work with the CCEDC. I was really, really impressed with what they do for local businesses. And when I got the call, I said, sure. Now, this is a wonderful event that I kind of do it with another, an economist. And it's just kind of evolved over the years. I will tell you, there was one year when my co-host, if you will, was in the ER, and Mary Frances McGarity called me in a panic saying, Patti, can you do the whole thing? And within, 50 minutes, I was hosting the whole thing, trying to wing it, trying to take up the time and add value for the audience. And as a result, they just keep on asking me to come back year after year because they know that I really do want to give people actionable items that they can apply to their own personal situation.
As we were researching your background for this interview, we're just amazed that you have received more awards than we have time to cover in the span of this podcast. So congratulations on your professional success from that angle. But one award really stuck out. Eric and I were both talking about this prior to our recording about your nomination and entry into the Barron's Hall of Fame. That's a real award. It's not one that we can write in for, and it's from a highly respected publication it's no pay to play. You have to do the work to get recognized. We're really kind of surprised that someone in Chester County has it, just as we think around and in our neighborhood? Cool, that's amazing. Who'd have thunk it? How did you get that honor? That's so impressive, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's really interesting. Barron's is owned by the Dow Jones Company, which is a Wall Street Journal. And I will tell you, to your point, they pride themselves on their journalistic integrity. There is no pay to play. They get nominations from all over the country, thousands of nominations. And basically, they have their top 100 list, top 100 independent advisors, top 100 women, all this stuff. And basically, the Hall of Fame is recognizing those people who have been consistently on their list for at least 10 years. The year I got it, I think there were 43 people on the list, and they've been coming out with this, independent evaluation for over 20 years. And, I'm Patti Brennan from Westchester, PA, to your point. I didn't know what I was doing to warrant such an honor, because they come in, they kick the tires. You can't just fill out a questionnaire, and they really do evaluate you. I think Barron's uses 117 different metrics or algorithms, and they don't want one-trick ponies. They want people who are consistently delivering a service above and beyond, who are setting the standard for the industry. And that's something that I'm really proud of. I flew under the radar for so long. I just did what I thought people would want, and really recognizing what people really needed. It's not just about, it's not about a pie chart. It's not about insurance, none of that stuff. It's about families in Chester County. How can we optimize their financial affairs and give them a little bit of peace of mind?
Talking about peace of mind, let's stick with that for a minute. Foreign and domestic politics is more interesting than ever, and the roller coaster isn't showing signs of slowing down anytime soon. Some people are scared, and some see opportunity. What would be one piece of advice that you would share with our audience about the current climate?
I suppose perhaps the best piece of advice I could give is it's always been volatile, right? There's always been something to worry about. So yes, this could be a great opportunity, or we could be in the beginning of a collapse. We don't know. And the most important thing is, you go into these times assuming that something bad is going to happen, have enough money set aside, and then if it makes you feel uncomfortable, don't look. It is scary, but I don't want to patronize people by saying, think long term. That's not acknowledging that, we don't live in the long term here in America. We kind of see the headlines, listen to the news, hear all the awful things that are going on. And to me, the most important thing, or the message, is it's okay to feel the fear. Just don't do anything about it. Because over time, we figure it out. That's the one thing I will say about Americans, about markets, about families in Chester County. We have a special kind of resilience, and just, you got to lean on that, lean on the fact that we're going to get through this, because we have and we will.
I want to back up a little bit and talk about your career. You didn't start in financial services. You started in nursing. You're an ICU nurse. And you told us in our pre-interview that you operate your company like a hospital. And your career journey has been really fascinating to me in particular. So tell us how you got here and how your nursing experience helped you serve your clients. And then I'll add one extra is, what's your perspective on running your company as a hospital? That's kind of interesting and unique. Tell us about that as well.
Well, it doesn't mean that our clients are sick per se.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you for clarifying.
Yes. People say, Patti, how in the world did you ever go from nursing to being the CEO of a $2.5 billion firm? I will tell you that the skill sets are surprisingly similar. Because when you think about it, if I'm taking care of someone in the unit, in the ICU, I've got to know everything about them. Okay, what they're in there for, what's normal for them, what's abnormal, what got them sick. And so when something happens, I have to know that that's not normal for them, and I don't have time to call the doctor. I've got to know what to do and be ready to execute. It's the same thing here. We didn't know that there was going to be a tariff war this year, but we had to understand each particular client in advance, where they were vulnerable, and make sure that we were ready to act if something happened. It's very similar skill sets. To answer your question about the hospital, what's kind of interesting about that is it's sort of, Key Financial has evolved over time. To me, the most important thing is when we accept a client, when I say, we'll be happy to help you, I'm making a promise to that person, that family. we're going to be here for the rest of their lives. And so to keep that promise, yes, we've got the greatest technology, and yes, we've got smart people, but I always had to make sure we had capacity to keep the promise. So what has happened over time is that as more and more people have asked us to be their advisor, I've needed to hire new people. And so what's evolved is, rather than have you got a financial planner, a portfolio person, and a client services person, and we have silos, that's the way our industry tends to work. What we've built here, and I say we because it's not just me, what we've built is more departments. So we've got the planning, we've got portfolio management, and then we've got key client services. And as we needed to add capacity, I've kind of filled from the bottom. So what's happened is senior people are mentoring the next generation, right? Because you've got me, I've been doing this for 35 plus years. I've been mentoring my senior leadership team, and they've been mentoring the next generation and the next generation. And so we've backfilled so that we always maintain capacity. So the hospital metaphor came about because, I used to be sitting at the bedside. And now I find myself working with the financial planning department. I've got Eric Furman, who's chief of medicine. Okay. He's the chief planning officer. So he runs that. Brad Everett is our chief investment officer. They are my surgeons. When something needs to be done, we don't have time, just do it. That is that department. Then I've got Lori Vogan. She runs our key client services. Those are my nurses. They are phenomenal. They are at that bedside. They know everything about their clients/patients. Again, not that anybody is sick. We want to make sure that everybody remains healthy. And so that's the way it's evolved. And of course, we've got administration, operations, and IT, just like a hospital does. And, I guess that would make me the CEO of the hospital.
It sure would.
It's a very interesting metaphor that you've extended in a fascinating way. The title of your book is "Am I Going to Be Okay?" Mm-hmm. In the book and on your own podcast, you've talked about how your business was really on the edge financially as you started to grow and you were in your early phases there. How did you know when your business, Key Financial, was going to be okay?
Well, it's really interesting. People think that entrepreneurs are high risk takers. As an entrepreneur, I'm going to tell you, we're not, okay? One of the things that I've learned over the years is that you're never really certain about what's going to happen, and you've always got to be ready. I will tell you that during the financial crisis, that was probably the most difficult time in my business, because at the time I was working out of the basement of my home, and my employees were coming in the back door, raiding our refrigerator on the way down to the basement to go to work, right? And the world really was falling apart. And so it was really difficult. And, Eric Furman, who is our chief planning officer, he and I were working late one night, and it occurred to me to ask him, how's everybody doing? We're really working hard. It's 24/7. How are you doing? How's the team? And he said, Patti, we kind of see what's going on out there, and we're thinking that maybe we're going to lose our jobs. And I have to tell you guys, I was absolutely shocked, because that was not something that I was thinking about. Now, I'm not going to lie, we were on the brink, and I was pulling money out of my accounts and my retirement accounts to make payroll. But I just felt like that would be the wrong thing to do. If anything, that was the time when we really needed to be there for our clients, and we were. And because of that, those same clients are so loyal. They knew that no matter what happened, we were going to be there for them. And it was a difficult time, but it was a great learning opportunity for me. And it was a wonderful opportunity for those people who were coming into my basement every single day to realize that loyalty is a two-way street, that just as they were loyal to me and our clients, I was going to be loyal to them, and they were not going to have to worry about their jobs. So I don't know. I guess that would be the example of the brink that we were definitely on, because again, I had 4 little kids running around upstairs. My husband also has his own business. So it was a tough time for the Brennan family, certainly.
It sounds like, when you were in the trenches, but was there a particular moment when things started to turn around that you knew that time was behind you?
Well, it's interesting. So 2008, 2009, then we had the Greek, crisis in 2011. Things started to get better after that, in terms of, understanding that, okay, we've got a repeatable process. We've got, clients were referring a lot, introducing a lot of their friends and colleagues, saying, go to Key Financial. They will be there when you need them most. And by the way, they are about holistic financial planning. They're going to make sure that you're going to be okay no matter what. And that, to me, that's the reputation that I feel so proud about.
Independent financial advisors are required to undergo audits and comply with lots of standards. Regulation and compliance impact many growing businesses. What advice, Patti, would you share with a small growing business facing this kind of introduction to compliance as a new hurdle? What would you share? What guidance would you offer?
It's really interesting. I've never really considered compliance to be a major problem. It seems to me that, for example, I answer to the SEC. The SEC is there to protect the investing public. Well, I got to tell you that somebody needs to protect them. And the SEC is there to enforce certain regulations. And I'm not naive. Some of the regulations are a little over the top. But at the same point, I've learned over time that it's good business also. It's good business to protect our clients. And so if the SEC and FINRA and all the different regulators out there say this is the protocol that you need to follow, then we do it. And it requires investment in technology, and it requires investment into people. And I've done both of those things. And so when we went through an audit, we got through it. It was difficult. It was equivalent to a regulatory colonoscopy that lasted about 9 months. And, I was pleasantly surprised at the closeout meeting that the regulators thanked me for my cooperation. And I was surprised at that. But at the same point, I would imagine that they don't get the kind of cooperation that we gave them over the 9 months. I just felt like they were doing their jobs, and we do ours.
You're running a business. You've released a book. You have your own podcast. You've been hosting your own podcast since 2020 or 2021. I'm not sure. But I do know that you have over 170 episodes under your belt. And I know that here at Start Local, we just published our 70th episode. So that we're certainly impressed at your podcast recording status and your success with it. 2 questions about it. Why did you decide to start a podcast, and what have you learned from your podcasting experience? Maybe Liam and I'll take some tips from you today.
I definitely have my pen out. I am definitely taking notes on this one, Patti.
Well, first of all, congratulations on 70 episodes. The average podcast program lasts for 9 episodes. That's it. People give up. So I will tell you that the catalyst was basically something that I wanted to understand. I wanted to learn about. And I will tell you guys that when my employees hear me say, wouldn't it be cool if, they're like, oh, here she goes again. All right. And so basically that was finished with, wouldn't it be cool if we had a room that I could just plug and play and go in and look into a camera and talk to our clients, and maybe explain certain things in words that they might be able to understand. So that's how it really started. So we set up a podcast studio. We've got cameras. We've got the audio. And one thing led to another. And what's really interesting for me and for us, the reason that we've been able to, put out 170 different podcasts is because there were 170 things that I wanted to learn about. And so basically what happens is, this is full disclosure, I go into the back area, planning, portfolio management, and I say, okay, guys, what kinds of questions are people asking us right now? And, or what do we want to learn about? Like, for example, during, one crisis, I didn't quite understand how the Federal Reserve was working with their monetary policy. So Eric and I did a podcast on it. I think it was Walt Whitman who once said that if you want to learn about something, write a book about it. At Key Financial, we do a podcast about it, and people seem to appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a big part of what we're doing here with Start Local is trying to get to know our community, not financial planning, but our community. And I just love your answer. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Patti, managing $2.5 billion is an enormous responsibility, I would expect. You have so many families, moms, dads, children, grandchildren, depending on you to fulfill the promises you made when they signed up with you. You said you would be there until they were no more. How do you manage that stress when you're not in the office? What does relaxation and unwinding look like to you? And I say this fully mindful that today is April 14th.
Thank you so much, Liam. I will tell you, I don't know how it looks, Relaxation is kind of a foreign concept to me because it's not so much that I have a lot of, I'm always stressed out. It's more like there's always something that I feel like I can be doing. Even this weekend, for example, I had clients who I wanted to get in touch with, and I wanted to understand how they were being impacted by all of this. So it's mostly about curiosity. I'm very curious. I want to understand. I want to know what's going on. I want to know how those clients are being affected by the world around us. We can't predict, we can't control, but we can certainly be there and answer questions. And that's really what I think it's all about, because it's, I make a promise. I'm not promising that they're going to get certain returns. I'm not making promises that they're never going to lose money, because I can't do those things. I typically tell them there probably will be a time when you wonder, so why do we have Patti Brennan? Why Key Financial? I've lost money this month. What's going on? Those times are going to happen. And, when we accept a client, when we, people ask, to be honest with you, people ask me all the time, will you take me on? Will you take care of us? And my answer is I always want to make sure I can justify our presence in their lives, because it's America, it's capitalism. Can we make a difference in their lives? And I find times like this is when that really happens, because they know we're looking. They know that we've got their backs.
Well, especially at times like these, we expect that almost everyone would love to have a team with Key Financial's reputation to help them manage their money. But at the same time, we understand that you can't be everybody to all people. So, who is the best ideal fit for a client from your business perspective?
It's a good question. It's funny because I used to think that we could be all things to all people, and over time, I've learned that we really can be all things to some people. And so, for us, those people where we can really make a difference are the people who, number one, are coachable. A lot of people have ideas. I'm very open to everybody's ideas. It is really a collaboration. If you are my client, the first thing I'm going to say is, listen, this is your money. If there's anything that you feel strongly about, I'm all ears. I want to hear that, because we can pretty much do anything. That's the advantage of being independent. And in case you didn't notice, I'm fiercely independent. I want to make sure that there's no conflicts of interest. I don't believe that, when somebody comes to us that they have to change everything. A lot of what people are doing is terrific. So we just want to complement. We want to collaborate and make sure that what we're doing is adding value. I will tell you, some people have big minimums. Okay, I don't like to judge people by how much money they have. That's not what we're all about. I do find that people with a higher net worth, they might have a business, they might have a 401k, they're approaching retirement, the kids have been educated. Those are the the kinds of clients where they're approaching that red zone as defined by our industry, right? The red zone is the 10 years before retirement to the 10 years, after retirement. That period of time, big decisions need to be made, whether it be portfolio related, 401k related, Social Security, Medicare. Lots of stuff is going on. And those are the things that we're really good at. Wills, trust, taxes, that's our expertise. That's where we can really make the difference.
Simply put, Key Financial helps their clients manage their money. I realize I'm boiling down all the things you and your team do to a very simple sentence. But I know that conversations about money can get heated and stressful, especially in times of economic uncertainty. How do you deal with clients when they're coming in hot?
Boy, is that a good question. You know what? It's okay for them to come in hot. I understand how they feel. And other people are feeling the same thing. Just to answer that question, feel, felt, found. I understand. We get it. You're not alone. What you're going to find is A, B, C, and D. Whatever it might be that they're upset about, they're worried about. Yes, we deal with money, we manage money, but we do a lot more than that. It is optimizing it because everybody's got their resources. You've got your sources of income, the uses of your income, and the uses are taxes, tuition, the typical stuff, food, clothing, all that kind of stuff. And there's worries around all of the above. So it's understanding each client when they come in, if they're coming in hot, what it is that's on their mind. There's always a solution. I'm not kidding you, there is always a solution. So it's really having a really good holistic understanding of what is, on a client's mind and what their solutions are. Again, I'm right back at the bedside, guys. Right back at the bedside.
It seems like a very natural spot for you. And I'm trying to reconcile in my head that bedside, very singular position where you have such a personal relationship with your clients as well as your employees when you're talking about when they were raiding your refrigerator as they were coming into work at your house every day. And at the same time, here on Start Local, one of the things we love to do is talk about clients who have, or rather people who are local who have grown their businesses. And I'm thinking about Key Financial right now. These days you have a chief planning officer. You mentioned you have a chief investment officer. We've heard story after story from founders and CEOs who have struggled to turn over control of key aspects of their business. So 2 questions for you on that front. When did you realize that you needed or wanted to bring in key leaders to handle strategic roles? And how has that process of letting go been for you personally?
It's been wonderful.
That's not a typical answer.
I love it.
Yeah, you know what? Because honestly, they're much better at it than I am. And to me, my job is to make sure that this is the last job that Eric and Brad and Lori and Vince ever have. That's my job as the CEO, to create a culture where they are growing personally, financially, and professionally. And honestly, that's why I think they stay. They know. It's very interesting. I just hired somebody new, and I think that she was really surprised. I said, listen, tell me what you need to do your job, and I'll find a way to give it to you. And she's like, really? I said, I don't have the time to investigate all the tools that are out there that can help you do your job better, more efficiently, and which ultimately is going to help our clients. You've got all of the above. So have at it. Let me know what you figure out, and we'll brainstorm. It doesn't mean that I'm going to say yes to everything, but I want you to have the freedom and to empower you to investigate, and we're going to make those decisions. You're going to make the decisions, and I will tell you, I typically say yes, because they're much better at evaluating these things. So to answer your question, I realized, being the mother of 4 children, the wife of Ed Brennan, Ed's got his own business. I've got 34 employees who also have their own families that they're taking care of. It's a stewardship on so many different levels. Stewardship of my employees' careers, a stewardship of my family's careers and my family's life, as well as our clients' financial affairs. And to be honest with you, it's wonderful to be able to delegate a lot of that responsibility to people who are much better at it than I am.
In past episodes, we've talked with other financial professionals, including Kathy Willichek, an accountant, and Paula Paisley, a business owner and bookkeeper. And like Eric, who is an IT professional, all of these folks in the financial services seem to know which closets have skeletons and where bodies are buried. How does your team establish the trust required for someone to reveal their financial insecurities and victories and maybe losses too, so that really you folks can do what you do best and help them?
It's a really good question. And sometimes even I'm surprised how willing people are to share their secrets and their financial affairs. I guess it's because I'm willing to share mine. I explain that, it was really rough it was really rough in the early years. We were doing the home equity line of credit to pay our bills type of thing. Things that I'm not proud of today, but that was the only way that we could get through it, right? So we all go through difficult times. And what I think is a shame sometimes is that when people call the office, they often say something to the effect of, I should probably know how to do all this. And we're like, why? This is really hard, especially when you've got so much else going on in your lives. You're successful at doing whatever you're doing because you focus on it. Focus on that, delegate this stuff. This is something we're good at. We know what we're doing. Leave it to us. We got this.
As a trusted advisor, you're probably considered part of the family by many of your clients, and you're working with people in the best of times and the worst of times. What's the most unusual situation you've encountered?
Boy, I will tell you that probably the most unusual situation occurred actually at a conference. I had just been on the stage speaking to a big audience, and I got a text message from one of my employees. And this employee said, Patti, can you call me as soon as possible? Now, this employee doesn't do that typically. So I called her and she said, I just got a call from so-and-so, and she's got a gun to her head. She's going to commit suicide. I'm like, I found out what was going on, et cetera, et cetera. I said, here's the thing. You and I are going to call this client together. So we got her on the phone, pretend her name was Susan. I said, Susan, what's going on? Now, I will tell you that this particular client had a bird. She loved her bird, right? And when we were working with her and her attorney doing her will, she turned to my employee and said, if I die, will you take care of my bird? And my employee was like, I guess so. I don't know. Anyway, long story short, we're on the phone with her and I said, Susan, here's the deal. If you do this, you are signing your bird's death warrant, death certificate. And she's like, what? I said, if you do this, Cindy doesn't know what to do for your bird. So the bird's going to die. You're signing the death certificate for your bird. She started to laugh. I knew I had her there. I said, tell me what's going on, yada, yada, yada. She said, I'm short of breath. I can't make it up the stairs. I was in the ER. They discharged me, but I can't get my air. I said, so what I'm hearing is if you could get some oxygen delivered to your house because your doctor wasn't returning your calls, et cetera. If I could get you an oxygen tank delivered to your house, you would not do this to yourself. You would put the gun down. She said, can you do that? And I thought to myself, I have no freaking idea, but I'm going to try. And I tried. And sure enough, it was delivered to her home. She got to the doctor the next day and she was fine. So that's probably the most unusual. I don't typically, talk people out of committing suicide. But a lot of people feel that desperate from time to time. And it's just nice to know, nice for them to know they can pick up the phone. They've got somebody who already knows everything about them and cares and will follow through. I think that's the difference also that I think is very important. A lot of people say, Patti, you've got so much empathy. And that might be true. Empathy is holding somebody's hand. Compassion is action oriented. If one of you was, crashing, holding your hand is not going to save your life. We've got to do something about it. And that, I think, is a really important difference. It's understanding, getting people through it, and doing something about whatever it is that's bothering them, that's ailing them, or what they're worried about.
That's a compelling story. Thank you for sharing that with us. Lot to think about there.
Mm-hmm.
Your annual economic forecast event at the Chester County Economic Development Council, we talked about this at the start of our conversation. It's a hot ticket. It sells out. And it's held up at Penn State Great Valley in their big auditorium. So it's a big crowd to hear you talk about it. And for the last half hour or so, we've been talking about your success with Key Financial. Tell us one thing you like to do in your spare time. We're coming back to this again, Patti, that would surprise your clients and all those live event attendees. What's something about you that they would say, oh my gosh, I didn't know Patti did that?
Mm-hmm. Well, the one thing that they know year after year is that I'm completely transparent. Some years I get it right. Some years I don't get it right. And I am very transparent. I say, okay, guys, for those of you, most of you were here last year also, here's a reminder of what I said, and here's how it really turned out. And I think people appreciate that transparency and that honesty.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that a lot.
Because nobody really knows. And I can make an educated guess. Yes, I've got contacts all over the country. And it's wonderful to be in that position right here in Chester County. But I'm Patti Brennan from Westchester, PA. The thing that might surprise everybody is that I don't come into my office until 11 a.m. And the reason is, first of all, I'm not a morning person. I'm a night person. And secondly, to me, there are some things that only I can do to move things forward. And so when I get into the office, people are tagging on me. There's a line. I don't know. I know that this is audio only, but if you were in my office, you'd see one of those deli ticket counters. Typically,
now serving number.
Exactly. I've got a line of people outside of my office. So, I want to make sure that I do the things that only I can do. And I'm not adding to my plate. Most people have these long lists. There's been studies that have shown that, entrepreneurs, leaders of businesses, you can basically get between 5 and 6 things done a day. So rather than overwhelm ourselves with these long lists and make us feel like, oh, what a waste, I didn't get my stuff done, just keep it simple. Do the things that move your business forward and walk out with peace of mind. So that's what I do in the mornings. I do that first. I usually try to do some form of exercise because I'm going to live a long life. I've got to live a long life. And that's what has been proven to do so. So that's basically the surprise.
Well, one thing that I suppose is not a surprise as a business leader is you've written a book. But what I would say is what's not a surprise is that it's not a typical self-published book that everybody's just doing to check a marketing box. It's a wonderfully written book that listeners can actually read. I know that we certainly did. But for our listeners, can you tell us who your target audience is for your book and why you chose to share with them?
It's a really good question, and it's one that I'm asked often. Who's your audience, Patti? Who are you writing this for? And, when a year ago, if you were to ask me, I was kind of vague about it. I was kind of wishy-washy. And it really comes down to, I don't want to pick my audience. I want them to pick themselves. I promise that there's something in there for everyone. The introduction is, people seem to really like the introduction. And section 1 is the process. Section 2 are the tactics. And section 3 are the 15 mistakes people make over and over and over again. And then you've got the conclusion, ties it up into a nice, neat little bow. It's published by Forbes Books. There's the editor is an outside editor that we got, who won several Pulitzer Prizes. And it was really interesting because when I talked to her, I said, this is a manuscript that I've written. I had one editor look at it. They changed 3 words. I really want this to be good. I want it to be readable, understandable. Would you be willing to take a look at it? And she said, Patti, I typically don't do books like this, but I kind of need to learn this stuff anyway. So why don't you send me the manuscript and I'll let you know whether or not I take on the project. She and I had a follow-up phone call about a month later. She said, you know what? This is really good. She said, there's only one thing I would suggest. She said, you put all the good stuff at the end of the book. She said, I would reorder it, Patti, because they're not going to make it there. So that's what she did. So that's basically how it evolved. I was not one of those people who was going to write a book. Honestly and truly, when I got the call from Forbes Books, they said, we want you to write a book, we've been following you. And we are wondering if you have a book in that brain of yours. And my answer was, no, I do not. I don't have time to go to the bathroom, much less write a book. And they said, we think differently. We have seen you. We've seen you on stages. Put some of that in writing. Let's give this a shot. So that's how it started.
You're busy. You're successful. How do you give back to your community and why?
I will tell you that this community is the reason for our success. They have supported us in so many ways. I think back to, the hospital, for example. We have one of the best hospitals, certainly in Pennsylvania and the nation, backed by Penn Medicine. I mean, you can't get much better than that. It's interesting. Giving back to the community is what we're all about. I love doing that. During COVID, I thought about those frontline workers and I thought about the businesses in town. And so I married the two, called a local business, a restaurant, and said, I'd like your business to cater lunch for the entire hospital. They said, really? I found out later on that phone call saved their business.
Wow.
And it's a well-known business. I think you guys might be surprised who it was. It was a wonderful opportunity to thank the people at the hospital who were taking care of all of us during a really difficult period of time. And also thank a business who was willing to show up to make this fabulous lunch for an entire hospital. It was a feel-good. It was something important for us to be able to do, and we were able to do it.
Tell us about a business or nonprofit in Chester County that more folks should know about.
We've been talking about Chester County Economic Development Council today. That is such a rich, organization with information and resources. These people go out of their way to help local businesses, to attract great people. That, I think, is the best kept secret here in Chester County.
It's definitely an underutilized resource. No question about it.
Oh my goodness, you guys! It's amazing. We've got Seedco right here in Chester County. They work with the Small Business Association to give businesses money to expand, to buy buildings, to pay their employees. That's phenomenal. And they know the drill. They know how to work the system and to make it work for local businesses. Hire One. You need employees, go to Hire One. There's, agriculture, there's technology, there's Get for young girls who want to learn about technology. It's just an incredible resource that is underutilized and not really known about.
Yeah, there's a lot with the CCEDC. They're good friends of the show. They've been on the show before, and it's part of how Eric and I came together. We're both involved with ITAG, one of the public-private partnerships through the CCEDC. So we are not surprised by your answer, Patti, but we are absolutely delighted to hear it.
And
So guys, for the listeners, why don't you tell them, I'm curious, because I'm a very curious person. Tell them about ITAG. What do you do at ITAG?
It always surprises people what iTag does in the sense that, it gives training grants to employers who are trying to upskill their workforce on technical skills or technical talents. And it's amazing to me that people are like, wait, the government's going to give me money? Some local organization in Chester County is going to give me money to train my employees? Yes, they are. And it's like, well, I feel bad asking for money. No, they want to give you the money. They want to upskill the workforce. It's a good thing to have a workforce that's growing and becoming more viable and staying viable as technology changes. So yeah, iTag is a very important organization to receive support from. It doesn't require much support at all.
I think it's a really good point when you upskill your employees, then you're making more money, they're making more money, and that's coming right back into the community. That's the thing. Commerce is the exchange of dollars. When I provide a service, okay, you give me money, right? And then I give a portion of that money to my employees. Then they go out and spend it. So it's the exchange of dollars, and that's what makes a vibrant economy like we have in Chester County. This is the place to be. I'm not kidding you. This is the greatest, well, it's certainly the wealthiest county in Pennsylvania, and it's because of the resources that we have right here.
Patti, you've been in business in Chester County for a long, long time. As you share, you've started in your laundry room, and you've also shared that you're up to 34. So that's a lot of growth. If your future self could have told your younger self one piece of advice as your business grew, what would you have told yourself? What would you have shared?
I would have shared, follow your instincts and get great people and hire ahead. That's been my philosophy that has worked time and time again. Get really good people who are dedicated, who share the same passion. Here's the thing, you guys. We can teach anybody anything. I can't teach heart. I can't teach dedication. That's something that I hope to be able to identify and have been very fortunate to be able to do so. It's just never ceases to amaze me how amazing these people are. And they show up day after day after day, going above and beyond, doing things for people that no one would ever expect. And it's because they're led by their heart. I will tell you a story of a track coach I love this story because the track coach was talking to this young boy who was doing the pole vaulting, and this boy was trying to set a record, and he's looking at this very high bar, right? And we all have high bars when we start our businesses. And the boy's shaking, and he's got his pole, and he's nervous, and the track coach got to him face to face, belly to belly. And he said, "Son, here's what I want you to do. I want you to run towards that bar, throw your heart over the bar, and your body will follow." That is what I've been doing my entire career. That's what my employees have been doing. They throw their heart over the bar and their body follows. And that's what's made Key Financial what it is today.
That's inspiring. It helps people grow, no doubt about it. Is Key Financial hiring today?
We're always hiring. We are always looking for good people who want to have an atmosphere where they can grow personally, financially, and professionally, and also want to have a lot of fun. I got to tell you guys, it's got to be fun. We have a ridiculous amount of fun here. There's just something about these people. They're very funny. I think that's a kind of a special kind of brilliance. The wit is it makes it so much fun. So, yeah, we're always hiring. We're always looking for good people.
Well, we'll be sure to include a link to your website and the careers page on that for folks to learn more.
Absolutely. And also for anybody who might be looking for somebody, we're here to serve our community in so many different ways. So, go to the website. If you have a question, that could be the next podcast. So, and if people have this question, chances are there's 1,000 other people in our own community who are wondering the same thing.
Patti, you talked a lot about supporting the community through the various work that you and your colleagues at Key Financial are doing. How can the community in turn support that work? How can they support you? How can they support your business?
I think that perhaps the best thing would be to spread the word. A lot of people are worried. A lot of people are just kind of going through the motions as it relates to their financial security. And a lot of people don't realize that we're here. They say, oh, you only work with super wealthy people. No, that's not the criteria. We are working with people who want to be helped, who are coachable. That to me is the most important criteria. So I would say spread the word. We're good people. We offer free consultation. You get a questionnaire, fill out the questionnaire. I promise everybody, if you fill out the questionnaire and you give us the information, your tax returns, your statements, if you do that in advance, I promise you, I will look at it in advance. And by the way, you do get me. I'm not going to delegate that meeting to anybody else because I want to make sure that your questions get answered on the spot. To the extent that I can do that, we're going to do it.
So other than your website, how can people get in touch with you?
The website certainly is one way. I've got an email address just like everybody else. And by the way, our emails are very simple. It's our first name, and I spell Patti with an I, Patti@keyfinancialinc.com. They can send me an email, ask me questions, ask for a meeting. Happy to do that. That's what it's all about. Let's keep it simple and let's get something done.
That's a pretty generous offer from a Barron's Hall of Fame winner right here.
Well, you know what? Hey, like I said, I'm Patti Brennan from Westchester, PA. I'm a mother of 4 children. I've got a small business. I get it. I really get it. And it's a privilege to be able to do this for people in Chester County.
Patti Brennan, founder and CEO of Key Financial, Barron's Hall of Fame member, Patti Brennan from Westchester, and mother of 4. Thank you so much for your time today. Oh, and wife of Ed Brennan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Liam and Eric. This was so much fun. Great job. Does this mean it's number 71? Congratulations.
I think so. I'll have to double check the exact episode number. I don't know where the time will come out, but all I know is it was a pleasure having you in the studio today. Thank you, Patti, for doing it. We really appreciate it.
And thanks to our audience for listening. Thanks to Eric for his time today, and of course for Patti as well. As a reminder, show notes and links to everything we talked about today will be on our website over at startlocal.co. We publish a new episode every fortnight, and you can catch our show wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We invite you to subscribe to our email list over on our website, and that'll ensure that you get all the latest news and updates and things we're doing. Thanks again for listening. Until the next time, bye for now.